7 left, clear to land. 230 at 20.
7 left, clear 650.
29 right turn, ground 9. 707, 270 head.
Welcome to the Hair Metal Rules podcast. Today's guest is the editor of Electric Flare magazine. Emelia interviews new and established rock and glam metal bands. I found her on Instagram by chance. I found her publication very interesting, so I asked her to be on the podcast. So, Emelia, welcome to the Hair Metal Rules podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You doing well today?
I'm doing pretty good, yeah. How about you?
I'm pretty good. Where are you from?
I'm from Maryland.
Okay, so you don't live too far.
No.
Yeah, we go to M3 all the time up there.
Yeah, I've been meaning to go. It's something that's on my bucket list, you know. I've been too young to go in the past, so I'm kind of at the age where I can go now.
It's a lot of fun going up there because I see people up there that I follow their music for, since I was 16, 17 years old, and it might not be all the original members of the bands, but they get out there and they play their old stuff, and that's what people want to hear. So, but it is a lot of fun seeing all the bands and some of the newer bands that come from time to time.
Yeah, I love that. It's a community thing where, you can get some of the older people that have been around forever and listening to that music, and then the younger people. I love the before party where they get some of the younger bands. Like I know last year they got like Scarlet Rocks and Midnight Devils to play.
Yeah, I've interviewed the lead singer from Midnight Devils. I think Midnight Devils are great. First time I ever met the Midnight Devils was me and my wife went to the Rock and Pod Expo in Nashville, Tennessee a couple of years ago. And Sam's real tall, the lead singer. I saw this guy walking around with white makeup on and his hair all out. I told my wife, I was like, there's Sam Spade from the Midnight Devils. And he came over and talked to us, and he's such a nice guy. Those guys just get out there and they have fun.
Yeah.
They just want to play, good glam sleaze type rock, and people love them. They played last year, but I believe it was the day before we got there, so we didn't get a chance to see them. But enough about that. Tell me about your magazine. I was checking it out this morning, and I've looked at some of the other issues of it. You have a lot of technical information on there, and you interview a lot of newer bands, but some of the bands you interview are have been around for a while that I personally have never heard of.
Yeah, that was kind of the whole goal of the magazine, because a couple of years ago, I kind of stumbled across the 21st century glam scene with like Stolen Prayer. And I didn't know there was a whole scene. I just thought it was one band. And I was like, oh, cool, there's a glam band. And then thanks to Everything Glam Metal, I found this playlist that he put together called Sleazy Listening Glam's Not Dead Part 2. And it's like a whole entire list of modern glam bands. And I was like, why is no one paying attention to this? Because you have all these like magazines that like cover rock music, but it's stuff from like, 25 plus years ago. And I love those bands and they deserve all the credit that they get, but they're not going to be around for much longer, so we got to like pay attention to some of the younger bands out there.
So what got you mentioned the list you heard. All right, well, what are some of your favorite bands from 35 years ago?
35 years ago? Okay, wow. I love Dokken. They're like one of my favorite bands. I'm a really big fan of like, I call it harmonic metal, where you have some harmonies in and stuff. I'm a big fan of Wasp. They're like one of my favorite bands. I was lucky enough to go see them live. I also like some of the more underground bands like Alley Cat Scratch, one of my favorite bands of all time. And I love like bands like Heaven Edge and all those like underrated glam bands.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of bands that I like. I was always drawn to the bands that weren't as popular. I mean, you had Motley Crue, Rad, everybody like that, but I always was drawn to the little ads that they put in Metal Edge and Rip.
Yeah.
I'm dating myself. I'm 53 years old, so I was 15, 16 years old when I first heard any kind of, and I call it hair metal. A lot of people don't like it called that, but it is what it is. I've fought enough people on that,
Yeah.
but but first album I ever heard was Night Songs by Cinderella.
Hmm.
And I went right out there and got the cassette. But I was always drawn to the Heaven's Edge is one of my favorite bands from Pennsylvania. It's
Yeah.
the it's like you say, it's the melodic, harmonic music that I was drawn to as well.
Yeah.
And Hurricane Alice,
Hmm.
Heaven's Edge, Hurricane, those kinds of bands. I was always drawn to those too. Um,
Right.
do you think? I know you mentioned, and you're exactly right. A lot of these bands that everybody follows, and they're the ones that still get the attention. A lot of those guys are passing away, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
and you're right. It won't be long before a lot of these bands won't tour
Right.
anymore. And I know there's a big market for it now. It's kind of a resurgence of the Sunset Strip or whatever, and they're out still making money. But you're right. Some of the newer bands that are out there, I hope and pray that there will be a resurgence of this, and you'll see these guys. There's no MTV anymore, of course, but you
Right.
know what I mean?
You're right. There's no MTV, but there's this amazing thing that I don't know if you heard of it, but it's called Now Dig This. And they have two parts. Now Dig This, where they have live acts come and perform, and then The Cut, where it's like an MTV kind of thing. They get music videos of modern rock bands. It's on TV, and then they put it on YouTube. And I think
Okay.
that's pretty cool.
And it's called Now Hear This.
Now Dig This.
Now Dig This. I'm gonna check that. I'm gonna write it down here. Dig this. Um, what's the do you personally talk to these people to do interviews? I'm sure you do, and you're like do you want to be a journalist? Is that what your goal is?
Love to, if I'm able to make a career off of electric flare, that's like the best thing to ever happen. But I'm also well aware that there's a high probability that that won't happen. So as long as I'm able to continue doing it in my life, even if it's not my full-time gig, that's all I really care about.
Well, see, that's kind of like what this podcast started out being. I talked about it enough, and my wife finally said, "Hey, either talk about it or don't do it." She got tired of it,
Yeah.
and it started out. It's fun, and I'm sure it is for you because you're talking to people that you listen to their music, you
Right.
follow them, and it's a whole lot of fun to actually talk to somebody, face to face. Or I don't know how you do your interviews. Do you do them face to face? You do phone interviews?
I have to do email because I
Email?
have like 2 months that I have to get this together, and I have a bunch of like articles I have to get together. So unfortunately, I can't do as many face-to-face as I want to, but that's definitely something I'm striving to do more in the future.
Is your right now your publication, anybody can just go look at it? I hope
Yeah.
that it gets big enough to where people will subscribe to your magazine. It's beautiful how you lay it out. I suppose you've taken some kind of, because I know I went back to college not long ago, and I had some, I don't call them kids because they're not kids, but to me they're a lot
Mhm.
younger, and they knew more about Photoshop and Adobe Acrobat, and they knew how to do stuff so fast. And me, an old man, took me a while to learn how to do it. Did
Yeah.
you learn this in school to know how to do this?
Nope.
Really?
I mean, in school, I did take yearbook, so I
Hmm.
had some like interviewing skills and getting stuff together, editing and putting together, but I've never used Photoshop or Adobe. In fact, like if you look at my first issues, I didn't use Adobe or Photoshop. I used I think it's like Forms or something, Publisher.
Publish?
Publisher.
Okay, right.
That's what I used. I had to move to Adobe and InDesign because I got a new computer for college, and
Okay.
it didn't have Publisher. And I was like, well, I got to learn, there's no other way.
So what made you decide to create your magazine?
Well, I started out doing tiny little interviews. Actually, my first interview I did was with Rudy Riot.
Okay.
So we've known each other for a while. And I was just like, I would love to make a magazine one day, like something like Rip or Metal Edge or
Right.
even something like Metal Sludge. That would
Yes.
be really, really cool. And my mom was like, why don't you just do it? You don't need to wait. And I didn't. So I was surprised how well it did.
Well, you have a lot of information in your publications. I know
Mhm.
are you getting ready to release the third one? Because
The third one of the second issue. Yes.
third one, second issue. Because I looked through and read some articles in the first two you have published. But I'm telling you, when I was your age, I read Rip Magazine from cover to cover. Rip Magazine was the Bible to me. Metal Edge Magazine, because then you had MTV and you had the Headbangers Ball.
Yeah.
Everybody rushed home by 11 o'clock midnight to watch the Headbangers Ball that was into this kind of music, and that's the only way you had to see what these people looked like.
Yeah.
Metal Edge, you'd see a picture, and fortunately, if you were lucky, you would actually see what they looked like on MTV. But
Mhm.
my point is, Metal Edge and Rip were very important back then because they supplied. I know a lot of people's like, Metal Edge is just like back then you had Bop magazine, which was a teen magazine that had, you know, 80s music in it, heartthrobs, whatever you want to call it. But it was very important to be able to read that because you knew
Yeah.
what albums were coming out. They actually, you actually learned about people. Nowadays, the good thing about it is you can follow somebody on Instagram or X or Twitter and you can find out what they ate for breakfast nowadays.
Yeah.
But back then, any little bit of information you could learn about them was good. So I hope, your magazine it's beautiful. Like I said, it's beautiful. It's laid out. It reminds me a lot of Rip magazine, the way you have it laid out.
Yeah. I definitely looked at some of that stuff and was like, huh, how did they do it? I'm not
Right.
gonna lie.
Does it take you a long time to do it? I mean, do you just do it in
Um,
your spare time?
I do it in my spare time. Yeah, because it's kind of currently my hobby. Because, like I said, I'm a college student, so
Right.
unfortunately, I can't spend all of my time doing this. Yeah.
Right. What are you studying in college, if I might ask?
I'm doing business right now. I'm not sure what type of business. I'm still figuring that out, but definitely business.
Well, busy can't go wrong with business because I mean that can take you in so many, so many different directions. So,
Yeah.
okay,
Um,
what's one song that you have to sing along to when you're in the car?
oh God. One.
Well, tell me your favorite song you have to sing along with in the car.
Okay, right now it's Tiger Tail's Love Bomb Baby. That song is just so
Wow.
catchy. I
Yeah,
love it.
that's a great song. It's funny you say that. Next week, I actually get to interview Robin Wild from Tiger Tales.
That's awesome.
That'll be pretty neat.
Yeah.
Of course he's in a new band now, and he said I don't mind doing your interview, but let's talk about my new band and not just about Tiger Tales because say my podcast is I like to talk about the 80s and the Sunset Strip because that's that was a defining moment in what you're doing, what
Yeah,
these
it
bands that
was.
you're following.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite band right now?
Right now, okay. I've been listening to a lot of Peppermint Creeps the past
Peppermint
couple
Creek,
of months.
right?
So I would say probably the Peppermint Creeps.
I have I talked to the lead singer for Peppermint Creeps, and he sent me some buttons and some stickers and an autograph picture, and I'm trying to get him lined up to be on the
Yeah. I would love to
podcast.
interview someone from the Peppermint Creeps, whether it's Macy or Billy or.
I'm trying hard. It's I want to do the stuff that I love, but yet I'm trying to gear myself towards the stuff that you love.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd make it a habit of listening to new music. I like Bad Romance,
Yeah.
Jet Black Romance, and that
Mhm.
guy was the guitarist for that is in Pretty Boy Floyd now. Dizzy,
Dizzy, yeah.
I got to meet him at M3 one time. Just old man having Dizzy standing beside me, right? And he figures like who's this old guy?
Yeah.
So, um, where do you want where do you want to end up with your publication? What is your goal for the publication?
First of all, I would love to be able to do 50-50. So 50 online, 50 like physical copies that are printed. I would also love to be at a point where I'm able to get some bigger names in it, you know? Because last issue I got Eric Jake from Wild Street in it, which that was really awesome. And I got Sam Bam Colton, you know, from Faster
Yes.
Pussycat, which was
Right.
also really cool, you know? So I would love to get some more of those a little bit more well-known acts in my issues.
How do you try approaching people to do interviews for you?
I just ask, you know, I tell them what I'm about and I'll be like, if you're interested, I can send some examples. And I have a 24-hour rule. If they don't respond within 24 hours, they're probably not interested and I just leave it, you know.
That you're like I am. I I've listened to this music for so long, Amelia, that I can troll through Facebook and I can recognize a name and I can like, okay, that guy played here, that guy
Mhm.
played here. And I'm like you, I'll send them an instant message and I have a thing on a WordPad on my iPhone that I have already typed out, so I cut and paste it, you know, tell them about my podcast. And
Mhm.
if I don't hear anything from them, I'm like you, a day or two, I don't bother them anymore. It's surprising how many people will actually answer you if you're clear on what you're wanting.
Yeah.
Because you know there's so many podcasts out there that do the same thing that I do, but there's not hardly anybody that does what you're doing right now that I've ever seen.
Yeah, there are some kids my age doing interviews on Instagram and stuff, but none of them are doing like a full-blown magazine. So I definitely have something unique.
Well, you know, as colorful as your magazine is, I imagine it wouldn't be cheap to produce it to where somebody could actually put it in their hands.
Oh, it absolutely would not be. You know, I'd have to be doing this for like 10 years or something, you know.
Well, so you're from Maryland and you're going to go to M3 at some point, right?
I'm hoping this year, knock on wood, finals don't intervene, you know.
Um, we're sitting there waiting for um them to announce who's going to be there because you know they have there's another concert right close to it that started this year that's got Metallica and Motley Crue.
Yeah, I'm going to that one.
Are you really?
Yeah,
Wow. So
yeah.
who are you looking forward to seeing? It's called Rock on the
Boardwalk, like Rocks or something
that's
like
right.
that.
Right. Who are you
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing?
I am personally really excited to see, even though I'm not the world's biggest Alice Cooper fan, I'm excited to see Alice Cooper because he's kind of like a legacy act, and it's like,
Sure.
oh, cool, I get to go see him. I'm really excited to go see Extreme. You know,
Oh
I've
wow, yeah.
been a big Extreme fan for a couple of years now, and I think Nuno Bettencourt is like one of the best guitar players ever.
Most definitely. Most definitely. I remember getting the very first Extreme album on cassette. And um, Hey Kid Ego is the first song I ever heard by Extreme. And I heard it on a college radio station here in North
Mhm.
Carolina back probably I was about 16, 17. And yeah, Nuno Bettencourt, he's great. I've tried to hit him up to try to come on my podcast, but he's one of those guys that just because he's got an Instagram page, he doesn't
Doesn't
really
mean he's
answer
active.
you or things like that. But
Yeah.
so you like Extreme, yeah. The Boardwalk. I was going to say. You know, Motley Crue's going to be there
Yeah, I'm 50-50.
With John Five though.
Yeah, I'm 50-50. I like Motley Crue, like,
Sure.
you know, kind of the Dirt era and before is kind of
Yes.
the Motley Crue that I enjoy. The most recent stuff I'm not a huge fan of, you know.
Well, you know, we had tickets to the big stadium tour,
Hmm.
you know, and then COVID came. So the stadium tour we saw like 3 years later, which we got to see them. And you know, there was Motley Crue, there was Def Leppard, Poison, and Joan Jett. And I've seen Motley Crue several times over the years. Seen Def Leppard. I've never seen Poison, and Poison was the best band that played at the whole thing.
Yeah.
They came out there with so much energy and um, Motley Crue was a lot of production,
Hmm.
and you couldn't hardly hear Vince Neil. Can tell me what your favorite concert has been so far?
Oh wow. Probably the Wasp concert I went to in November. That was awesome. Like Wasp was one of my first like I'm gonna say big girl bands that I got into in
Right,
early high school. And it was just so cool. I was kind of in front row, so Blackie was like, 3 feet away from me, and I was
right.
like, oh God.
Did you see him with Armored Saint?
Yes, yeah.
We went to that a couple of years. It's probably been about 2 years. They played at the Ritz in Raleigh, and
Hmm.
I've always liked Wasp. The first, the first Wasp I ever heard was I bought the Live in the Raw cassette,
Hmm.
and I thought, that's when I fell in love with 9-5 Nasty and Lord, you name it. I don't need no doctor. The Wasp is great. And seeing Blackie Lawless up there, I admire him for his age. He's got a great band with him that sound
Definitely.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And he's still got it.
Yeah, yeah. My only minor complaint is they didn't do as many like theatrics as they normally do,
Right.
But that's not that big of a complaint. They played amazing. I don't want to nitpick a concert.
Sure.
That's like the worst thing to do.
Well, back in the day when Wasp, they were on the strip, they had a lot of theatrics.
Yeah,
You want to sell yourself, and just like Motley Crue with their theatrics. But what's
yeah.
one concert you wish you could go see? Who would you wish you could see if somebody walked up to you and said, "Hey, I got 2 tickets to any band"? What would it be?
Okay. I've been dying to go see Faster Pussycat for a while. So that would have been awesome. Um,
Have you ever seen Faster Pussycat?
nope.
Okay.
Yeah. I keep missing them. Like they seem to only play the M3 now. So it's
Yeah,
like see them at
right,
M3 or there's no other chance of even going to go see them.
right. We've seen them. I think the first year we went to M3, they were there. And I'll tell you a quick story. We were sitting way. I don't know if you've ever been to the amphitheater where M3 is, where they played at Merriweather. But anyway, we were up. We got grass seats because it's the first time we ever went. It was a spur of the moment thing. I told my wife, I was like, we got to go see this. Look how many people are here.
Hmm.
We were on the little rail there where you could look up and see the screens and down. But anyway, somebody walked up to us on Saturday and said, "Hey, we're not going to be able to make it tomorrow. Do you want our seats?" So they handed us our tickets, and we were way, way down there where the seats were. And, I'm not going to lie to you. I get excited about this kind of stuff because, like I say, I've lived this for so many years. But anyway, we were there early, sat in the seats, and this guy walks out holding a dog from the back of the stage there. And I told my wife, I said, that's Tammy Down from Faster Pussycat. And he was standing there talking to somebody, and I walked down to where he was, and the guard actually let me, go through because the venue had no W. And he was so nice. He walked up to me with his dog, and he was just checking things out, and he took a picture with me and signed my ticket stub. Can you tell I'm a big fan of this music?
Yeah, I can tell. I mean, hey, I am too. I just haven't had the great experiences of going to see some of these bands.
Well, let me ask you something. I don't know how old you are, and it's none of my business, but I have a 25-year-old daughter, and she has listened to this music since she was about 3 years old, and she knows the music just as well as I do. But anyway, did you have a parent that listened to this music, or did you have that made you? Do you understand what I'm saying? Everybody's got to
Yeah.
be introduced to something.
Both.
Who introduced you? Both your
My
parents?
dad, my dad was a big metalhead. He told me all these things of saying, "Oh yeah, I saw Black Sabbath with Ronnie James Dio, or I saw Ozzy on the Diary of a Madman tour just after Randy died." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. Rub it in much?"
Rub it in much.
Yeah,
Well, that's great that most, like I say, most people, just like with anything else, you have a parent or a relative that introduced you to this. I
yeah,
remember when I was probably 7, I used to have to stay with my aunt, and she had a son that was in high school, Steve, and he played guitar very well. And I would sit in his room and listen. He would put Kiss on and play it, and he was one of those people that he'd play it note for note just as soon as he
Mhm.
listened to it. But listen to Kiss albums and Boston albums, that kind of stuff. And then of course, you know, listening to Night Songs the first time. And I think the music is great. It's being replicated now, and it sounds great.
Yeah.
One of my favorite bands right now is Smoking Snakes from Sweden,
Hmm.
and I've interviewed Andy DeLarge from the Smoking Snakes, and I think
Yeah.
their music is waspy sounding and heavy sounding. And of course, like I say, the guys from the Midnight Devils are great, but I'm going to some of the bands that you have in your magazine. I was looking them up this morning and listening to them, and wow, that they have, if they were playing, if it was 1987, they would fit right into the
Yeah.
Whiskey a Go Go or the Troubadour. That would fit right in. I'm so glad that you're putting this music out there and promoting it. I really hope it gets bigger than you can handle. And I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah, yeah, I'm hoping so too. I'm posting every day. I'm doing like little blurbs of some of the bands from like the early 2000s, like
Hmm.
the first generation of
Yeah.
21st century glam. So yeah.
Yeah, I follow your posts on Instagram. I love when you post things, and I think you're doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
Is there
Yeah.
anything you want to promote, push?
Well, I'm having an issue coming out in February. I don't know exactly when, but it's coming out. That's really all I have to push. Of course, follow me on Instagram, Electric Flare Magazine, because that's where you're gonna get everything. And yeah, that's about it.
So are you just now back to school after break, or have you gone back
Not
to
yet.
school yet?
I
Not
have
yet.
2 more weeks.
Wow. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
long time. May I ask what college you go to?
Yeah, I go to York College, of
Okay.
Pennsylvania, so I'm not far from home at all.
Not far from home. So we have a girl that goes to our church, and she's about 3 hours away from home, and every weekend she's at home. I said, you don't like staying by yourself at school? She's like, no, it's just nice to come back home,
Mhm.
but at least you're close to where you can come back home.
Yeah. Also, I can't listen to my cassettes at school, which kind of sucks.
Right. Where do you get your music from?
There's a little record store about 15 minutes from where I live, and they sell cassettes that are like $5.
Right.
Every now and then they're a little more expensive, like $15 if it's like an ultra rare one, but your usual run-of-the-mill ones are about $5. So I got a lot of them from there.
So do you take a chance on something that appeals to you, or do you already
I
know
always take a
what you're
chance.
looking for? Huh?
I always take a chance. I've discovered some of my favorite bands that way. Like Heaven's Edge. I found their cassette when I went to Nashville over the summer. And I was like, this band looks familiar and I feel like I've heard them from somewhere, but I don't know much about them. So I popped it in and I was like, okay, this is fantastic. You know?
Yeah. What I like about that album is they had a good marketing person, because the first intro to the album tells you pretty much every song title that's on the album, if you pay attention to it good enough. So they're telling you the name of the songs in the intro. I think that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I interviewed Reggie Wu, the guitar player, last year for my podcast, and actually Heaven's Edge played at M3 one year, and I was so thrilled that Heaven's Edge was there. Because like I said, I've been a fan for so long, and got to meet Reggie and the lead singer Mark Evans. And good thing about some of those bands back then, Amelia, is they had a little choreography going on, like Warrant. If you watch Down Boys,
Yeah.
they get down on their knees and they're swinging back and forth and all this. And Heaven's Edge will do that too. They'll get out there and do the guitars back and forth and kick their leg up in the
Yeah.
air at the same time. So you're like I am. I would go, if I flipped through it in a magazine. I was one that a lot of times the cover kind of drew me to the band. Sometimes it was a bad choice for 8.99 back in 1987, because that's all
Hmm.
you had were cassette tapes. But I always took chances on albums too, and it sometimes they paid off. and I've loved them all
Yeah.
this time.
Most of the time they pay off.
Most of the time they pay. Well, it's just like with anything else. I mean, even new music now that you listen to, that you're promoting, there may be two or three great songs on something, and then the rest
Hmm.
of it's just kind of
Yeah.
filler. But that's it with anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. I've rarely bought a album or cassette over the years that I liked every single song on. I was like, yeah, that was worth the money.
Yeah.
If
Um,
you could be a superhero, what would your superpower be?
oh God. Well, I'm a huge Marvel nerd, and I always thought those super soldiers were really cool, like Black Widow and the Winter Soldier. So I'd love to have skills like that. That would be really cool.
I try to throw some just some weird mess in there from time to time. What
No,
were you going to say before I asked the question?
I was gonna say that some of the bands in the scene, right? I'm not gonna name names because I'm not
Sure.
a,
No.
but some of them it's like they have a great persona, and then you go listen to their music, and it's like, oh, I don't get the hype, you know?
Yeah.
And they like have a
Uh,
huge following and things like that, and I'm like, I don't get it, you know?
well, it's bands now that I think it's and even for somebody like you, someone like bands nowadays have it a whole lot easier, in
Hmm.
my opinion. They can. I talking to Andy from Smoking Snakes. I said, guys, you guys have videos and you have this, that, and the other. It's so easy for you. He's like, well, it's really not easy because you get together, you stand in front of a green screen, and you make a video and you post it, and millions of people see it. He's like, but we haven't even got a gig yet. And to see Smoking Snakes ads on or reels on Instagram, you're like, these guys are all over the place, but they're really not. And
Yeah,
go
that's
ahead.
what kind of sucks, you know?
Yeah,
Like you can be super popular on like Instagram and stuff, but in the real world, they're not going to take a chance on you, you know? Unless like a band like Faster Pussycat or Pretty Boy Floyd, it's like, yeah, come on tour with us or come open up with us, you know? Which some bands have been really lucky to have that happen, you know?
that's what he said. He said if we could get, a 80s type band that's still out and we could hook in with them, we would get more exposure. He said, but now, you're just, you make sure you post on every social media platform you have and constantly post, and hopefully somebody will pick you up. It's good
Yeah,
that some of the 80s bands will pick up, a newcomer and give them a chance. Because, you have to think about it like this, Amelia. Somebody had to give them a chance back in
yeah,
the 80s. So why wouldn't you know, pay it forward and give somebody else a chance to
right. You know,
do
that's
a
kind of
lot
what,
of bands play around your college area?
no,
You're like, no.
nope. Nothing I'm not interested in. It's like new metal or like super hardcore metal, which
Yeah,
I'm not a fan of. I'm not gonna trash anyone that listens to it, but it's not
sure,
my
sure.
thing, you know?
Well, that's
Which,
how I am. I was never into I liked some heavier stuff. I liked King Diamond. I like Vicious Rumors.
mhm,
Testament is a heavy band, but they had some great songs. I
mhm.
wasn't necessarily into it, but I still, you know, like a lot of their stuff. But I don't like the gruntle voice and that's still metal, and some people like it, and that's great.
Right, right,
There's so many there's so many avenues of the word metal. You have progressive, you have glam, you have sleaze, you have
right.
hair bands like you see behind me, and there's just, but it's great that it's all kind of morphed into one
Yeah.
ball. you know
That's why it upsets me when people make fun of glam metal or like hate on it. Cause I'm like, well, dude, this is like still surviving. You know, it's been like 40 years, 50
yeah,
technically if you want to count 70s glam.
there you
Um,
go.
and you know, there's more stuff on it. And I'm not hating your genre of metal, so why are you
Sure.
hating my genre of metal?
Well, I've got to the point, I post stuff constantly.
Hmm.
you know I I've just recently got a TikTok account, and I'm trying to work on it. Instagram has been so much fun because I have met so many people
Yeah, same.
through this community that's built. People
Hmm.
that you know, I've never personally met them before, Amelia, but they've helped me out so much that I would honestly do anything in the world for them if I possibly could. But you've always got some knucklehead that's going to say something smart on one of your comments or one of your
Right.
feeds. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? If you don't like what I post, why on earth are you even following me?
Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, you don't like glam metal? Okay, then don't go on any glam metal accounts and trash them. You
Thank
know?
you. I always thought glam metal, to be honest with you, I always thought the glam metal guys were the coolest looking guys. I don't know if have you ever heard of Rock's Gang?
I've heard of them. I do not believe I really listened to them.
Well, you should listen to Rock's Gang. They have No Way Out, Scratch My Back. These
Hmm.
guys had hair. I mean, they
Yeah,
were glam, leather,
yeah,
lipstick. I liked, Pretty Boy Floyd. I mean, that were just as glam as you could that come as they come
right.
back in the day. I liked those bands because they had a raw, rough sound. You know,
Hmm.
they LA Guns is a lot like that, their first album, but you take it to another level and it's a whole lot more, sleazy sounding or whatnot. And
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I love all that stuff. And you know, everybody's got their opinions on music. That's what makes this whole thing
Hmm.
fun, I guess you could say. You got
Yeah,
haters. I'm sure you have people that send you comments that you can really care less about what they have to say.
yeah.
That's the freedom of saying what you want to say.
Right. But on the flip side, you're right. There's a really like nice community on it, you know, and if you know one person, well, they can hook you up with other people or they can introduce you to others, you know, and it's really, really cool how those kind of things work out. And it's just cool to talk to those people, you know, because you're like, you have so much like cool history and things that you've gone through. It's just like, I want to hear what you have to say, you know.
I've always tried in my Instagram page. I just post things that I like.
Hmm.
I post bands that I listen to, the bands that I can remember. And I've posted a lot of stuff on Instagram, and it's what's flattering is when somebody actually hits you up and says, "I totally forgot that band." You brought back a memory from, my past. I remember where I was when I heard that song, or, I haven't heard that album in years. I forgot all of them. Who is that band? And that's the whole fun part of introducing people to, because I never ever want this music to die.
Oh,
You're,
absolutely not, you
you
know.
know, and you're the next generation that's trying to keep pushing it, and good for you. And don't like I say, I know you're in college and you got schoolwork to do too, and you're putting out a great magazine, beautiful pictures.
Mm.
I like how you lay it out. Like I say, it reminds me so much of Rip magazine. That's what kind of draw me to it when I saw you on Instagram. I clicked on your link there. It's like, wow. And then I saw Rudy Riot.
Yeah. He's been my
Rudy's a
guinea
mess.
pig.
Yeah, Rudy's a great guy. I had him and
Jack.
Jackie. I
Yeah.
had them on the show, and they're so nice, and they're trying so hard
Yeah.
to keep it going. And I really want young people like you, like Rudy.
Yeah.
I met a band in Maryland called Stolen Prayer. Have you ever heard of them?
Stolen Prayer. Oh, yeah, they're from Nashville.
Nashville. Well, they were at M3.
They were at M3, Stolen Prayer.
Yeah, they were walking around. They didn't play,
Oh my God. I
but
wish I knew that. You know, that
but
would have been I definitely need to go next year because I need to like you know, a chance to interact a little more with the community and stuff, you know.
Well, at the Rock and Pod Expo, they had a table there. Stolen
Yeah.
Prayer did, and it's funny. We went to the night before. We went to It was called Keel Fest.
Hmm.
And it was Ron Keel and the band Keel, and Steeler, Alcatraz, a band called Cold Sweat. That all these three bands morphed from one band into another. But anyway, um, the guys from Stolen Prayer, they were sitting right. at the same table with us. We had already met them at Rockin'
Yeah.
Pod and talked to them. Nice guys. And
Yeah.
the guitar player, he sat there and talked to us for a long time. But my whole point is, it's nice to see there's a younger generation out there trying to push this, like yourself, Rudy,
Yeah.
Stolen Prayer. You know, just good for you guys.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to see what you're doing, and look forward to seeing where your magazine goes.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what the future holds for my magazine, you know. Yeah, I'm surprised because it's international and I didn't expect it to go international, you know.
Hey, that's good.
Yeah. It's kind of
But
weird.
if you start printing the publication and it goes international, you'll be seeing your magazine will be all over the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think
Well,
I need to start small first, like selling t-shirts and pins
right.
first before, you know.
That's what I want to try to do. You know, I want my podcast to grow, and I'm going to get some t-shirts made and things like that. But you know that stuff costs money, and it comes out of my pocket because I'm not a subscribe to my channel, pay me, that kind of thing. I don't want to do that. I just want to just
Yeah, me
make
neither.
people happy. But
Hmm.
yeah, you get some t-shirts out there and some buttons, some stickers,
Yeah.
because
I
your
might
logo is great.
no, thank you. Yeah, I had a friend make it for me. I'm not artistically, you know,
Right.
inclined like that. So,
But
yeah.
you're like I say, just keep doing what you're doing and pushing what you're doing, and
Yeah.
it's great to meet you. I'm sure this probably wasn't a lot of fun for you, but I just think you're an interesting person, and you're a youngster, and I just thought it was great when I saw your magazine. So I was like, I'm gonna ask her would she like to just be on the podcast and just talking about
Uh,
your magazine. Like I say, it's great. Get to M3 sometime.
I'm gonna try to go this year if things work out. So,
Like I hopefully they'll introduce who's going to be there. They always have a good, but I had
yeah.
heard this year they were going to try to mix some 90s rock in there too, and that'll
Mm.
turn a lot of
Um,
people off.
that could be good depending if they're doing 90s glam, like
Right.
bands like, you know, Big Bang Babies, Alley Cat Scratch, Peppermint Creeps, Foxy Rock, stuff like that. That could lean into the 80s. But if they're doing like grungy stuff, then yeah, I don't see it going over well.
Well, watch if you ever watch my podcast, go on YouTube. My podcast, my first podcast of 2025 is Tony Starling from Foxy Rocks.
I was actually watching that a little bit before I got on here.
He's such a nice guy.
Yeah, yeah,
They've been around for so long,
yeah. I'm
and
lucky because he's gonna be in the next issue of Electric Flare, so I'm
oh,
really
is he?
excited about that. Yeah,
Nice,
yeah.
nice. Well, I'll have to tell him that I talked to you, and but like he's just such a nice guy. And Big Bang Babies, you mentioned Big Bang Babies. I remember sending them $5 in the mail back in like 87, 88.
Hmm.
I got an autographed CD of their very first
Yeah.
album that came out. They signed it for me and sent it to me a long, long time ago. That's about as glam as you can get, Big Bang Babies.
Yeah.
Those
Yeah.
those guys, the makeup and the lipstick and the big hair, that's what the 80s are. To me, that's what the 80s are all about.
It
And
was. Yeah.
yeah.
And it's a cool thing because it takes like more confidence and you realize to dress like that as a guy, you know?
Oh, sure.
Like I was watching this documentary called Road Dogs. It had the Peppermint Creeps in it, and they're just walking down the streets the way they're dressed, and they're getting heckled for it, but they don't care. They're just like all confident and stuff, and it's like I don't think I could do that.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you say that, and because you figure, back in the mid 80s, late 80s, I mean, Sunset Strip, I mean, Motley Crue walked around looking exactly the way they look in album covers.
Hmm.
And you had Warrant wasn't a big hair band, but you figure Steve Blaze walk. I mean, guys from gosh, I lost my train of thought. Pretty Boy Floyd, those guys walking around, and they got all dressed up right before the concert. Like I said,
Yeah.
they're walking around like that all the time. And yes, you have to be a very confident person
Definitely. Yeah.
do that, and it went into their music. The confidence they had went straight into their music, and
Yeah.
these guys didn't care. They were, the ones I've talked to, they weren't necessarily there to get a record contract. They were just there to play music any way, anywhere, they possibly could play. You figure, look at it like this: Blackie Lawless used to play on the Sunset Strip, and the act behind them was Striper. How ironic is that? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a little funny, honestly.
You got heaven and hell per se, or back to back on a stage. But
Yeah.
can you imagine my ultimate fantasy would be to build a time machine and be able to go back to 1987 and
Yeah. Oh
walk the
my
strip just one
God.
time.
Yeah, I would love that, like gone to like certain concerts in like the last like 40 years that I would love to see.
Who do you wish you would? Who do? Okay, I'll end it with this question here. Who would you wish you had have saw if you could go in a time machine back in
Okay,
the 80s?
I'm gonna have a list. So,
Sure.
Dawkins, I would love to see Dawkins like under lock and key kind of era.
Right.
Early Wasp when they're still doing all theatrics, either the KFD era or their very debut album.
Okay.
Hanoi Rocks, I would love to see them live.
Right.
Alley Cat Scratch, I think they're amazing. Dead Boys and Trash Boys and Dead City is like one of my favorite albums.
Right.
Um, I would have loved to see Peppermint Creeps before Tracy died. That would have been really cool to see him. I would even go back to early 2000s to go see Scarlet Rose like live when it was like early 2000s.
It would have been nice to see all that stuff.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen. I would love to have seen Shout at the Devil era Motley Crue, that
Oh,
concert.
that would have been awesome. Yeah.
All the fire and the
Mhm.
the pentagrams, back in the 80s. I can remember when they started putting parental advisory stickers on albums. There was the PMRC was a political thing, and that's when they were saying they were playing records backwards, and it was said you could play Helter Skelter backwards on a record player, and it would talk about Satan. I mean,
Yeah. It's like
come on
stupid
now.
stuff because parents are scared and don't want to have a conversation with their kids about what they're listening to.
Exactly. But you know what? Them trying to do that, Amelia, made them sell that many more records and
Yeah.
made them that much more popular, and just that's the kind of junk. I mean, Wasp was one of them that was censored. Twisted Sister, Motley Crue.
Right.
So when you thumb through cassette tapes back in the day, if it said parental advisory on it, is a pretty good chance it was going to be good music you were getting ready to buy.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Do you have a record? Do you have an album? Do you have an album collection, or do you just CDs, music, internet music, spot that kind of
Yes.
stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
I have cassettes, CDs, and records. I use my cassettes and CDs a little more because it's just easier.
Right.
And also with CDs, you're able to get a little more rare ones sometimes.
Sure, you're
Like
right.
I was
Right.
able to get the second Quiet Riot album that came out with Randy Rhoads on it. And I also got Girl, the
Yeah,
band
Girl. Yeah.
Colin and Phil Lewis.
Right,
And
right.
some like cool albums like that.
On CD
Oh yeah.
or cassette.
Yeah.
Yeah. You actually have a cassette player.
Yeah, it's my dad's old one. It's like
Nice.
the dual, so it has CD and cassette player.
I know. Sam from the Midnight Devil sent me. I told him, I said, send me something, and he sent me a Midnight Devils cassette. It's pink, and he signed it. I don't even have a cassette player, but
Yeah.
you
I
know,
have a Wanted one. I don't know if you've heard of Wanted. They're like a modern heavy metal band. They sound like Dokken a little bit. And it's, this like red, like
yeah.
neon red. It's really cool.
It's funny you say Wanted. I discovered Wanted about 5 minutes before you popped up on the screen, because TikTok, somebody I posted on TikTok, and Wanted left me a message and said, "Hey, you need to check us out."
Yeah,
So
they're
I
really
listened
cool.
to them. They're great.
They're really nice dudes too. I've gotten them in my magazine, so
Okay. So I sent them a message and asked them, would they like to come on the podcast sometime? Well, I know you got better things to do than sit here and chat with me. I just like talking about this music. I like to hear, your perspective on it. I'm so glad that you're listening to this music. You like Dokken, you like Extreme. I mean, that's though Dokken, you can't really talk about the 80s without Dokken.
you can't.
They defined it.
Yeah, it's one of those bands that makes me so upset that they aren't listened to a lot. Like in the 80s they were huge, but
Sure.
once the 80s kind of, fled out, no one really paid attention to them anymore.
But it's good that, you got to look at it like this. You posting what you post in your magazine is somebody's going to think, well, where did these bands get influence from? And they're going to find Rats and Dawkins and Motley Crues and Warrants, because you hear the music that you're posting that I've watched and went and looked these bands up on YouTube. You hear all kinds of bands from the 80s, the sounds. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I know you probably got some homework to do or something. I'm not sure, or got something better to do, like go outside and not talk to me. But I do appreciate you coming on the show. It was fun talking to you. I wish you and your magazine nothing but the best. I keep reading it on there, and I enjoy what you put. I'm learning new stuff, and I'm learning new bands that I really like and want to talk to them if they want to come on the show. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, and keep listening to music. Keep doing what you're doing. Don't just keep getting better when you got time. And like I said, you're doing a great job, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I enjoy the rest of your break.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Tower Blue at 650 volt, hip hop.
50, 27 left, little land, 230 at 20.